Jones did some fantastic work on finding the red and gray chips of nanothermite in the World Trade Center dust. Of course, if this building had collapsed in a pancake format, as they told us, you wouldn't have a thermite or thermate, which is thermate plus sulfur, which acts as a eutectic to make the explosives even hotter to cut. And you even see in the residue of the buildings, in the wreckage, you'll see like steel beams cut at an angle, which is exactly how they do the preliminary cutting of the support columns.
Certainly, this would have had to been done well in advance, these explosives in the buildings. And if you look at who owned the security, who ran the security of the World Trade Center, it's George Bush's brother, his company.
Stratesec.
That's right.
Stratesec
ran security for the towers.
Yeah. Yep. And you even have a guy named Scott Forbes, and fiduciary trust comes up again. Remember, I mentioned fiduciary trust with Ann Tatlock coming to that meeting with Warren Buffett. Well, another fiduciary trust employee, Scott Forbes, was an IT guy, and he noted that there was a power down of both the North and the South Tower on the weekend before the attacks, which gave ample opportunity for continuity tests to make sure the explosives ordnance would work.
That's right. And folks, I'd like to bring up something now that is pretty controversial, but I believe that this event would not even be possible or doable just with conventional explosives, even with micro explosives like nanothermite.
Yeah, that was only part of it.
I think that there is something even bigger that went down. That was a display of new weaponry.
First of all, you had concrete pulverized into dust. Now, what can do that? That's something very powerful.
Exploding outward, and there being absolutely not even anything larger than a small, tiny bit of debris, no bigger than an ashtray left in the rubble. I mean, literally this material, the amount of material we're talking about in these massive structures of steel and concrete, the amount is unfathomable.
As David Ray Griffin said, take a block of concrete and drop it, about 1,000 feet. Now, will it turn into pulverized dust? No, it'll break into chunks.
Right.
We had
this dust was all over the entire area of southern Manhattan and going across the river into New Jersey. I mean, this is unbelievable how much material completely disintegrated. That's the only word that can really be used to describe it. It disintegrated. It came apart completely. Now, explosives do blow things apart, but not into fine particles like this. And,
there was some first responders, David, I forget his name, he was one of the New York police officers who was affected by the operation, and he had, massive amounts of pulverized concrete in his lungs.
So many responders are sick, dying, or already dead as a result of the toxins that they breathe directly into their lung linings on this day. And you don't live very long when you have a lung lining full of concrete and other debris like asbestos and any of the other toxins that were in the construction materials of those buildings. And, my heart goes out to these first responders for trying to do the right thing, but they should not have listened to the assurances of people who did not have their interest in mind that, it was okay to be out there without adequate professional protection in the form of breathing apparatuses.
Well, yeah, and then you had Christine Todd Whitman telling them that the air was safe to breathe.
Right.
Unbelievable.
So, going back to the possibility of more exotic energy-based weaponry being used on that day, I mean, if you see the way this building came down and watch it again, some force from above seems to have been at work. Not, from below or in the buildings, but from above, literally pushing the buildings downward and breaking them apart as it's doing it. And this could be some type of beam weaponry, and this could be some type of application, a perverted application of Tesla's standing wave technology that we know very little about. I'm very open to the possibility of it being some sort of a directed energy weapon. Dr. Judy Wood has done an immense amount of work in this area. I highly recommend people take a look at her website and
Where Did the Towers
check out
Go?
Her new book.
Yes.
So I think that there is something to that it should be looked into. I think people should look into all of the aspects of this event. They should look into the conventional explosive theory. They should look into the reasons for it, the why behind it, namely wanting to take away more freedoms from the American public, inject more fear into the consciousness. They should look at the possibility of exotic weaponry being used. They should certainly, most definitely, look into the occult aspects and the symbolic aspects of this event, and that's what I will spend a lot of time covering on this show. All of it needs to be understood, and we need to get down to the people who had access to doing all of these things. As the caller said, we need to look at who made these intelligence drills for these days. We need to look at who gave these reports in advance of buildings collapsing before they did, because that's going to send us in the direction of the actual perpetrators of these horrid events that were mass murder. It was a mass murder ritual, is what we witnessed on that day. Make no mistake, this was a human sacrifice ritual of the modern day, nothing less. So, with that in mind, I think that'll take us out for this segment. On the other end of this break, we're going to take callers until the end of the show. Your calls coming up next on What on Earth is Happening. Me and my special guest, Darrell Rawlings, will be right back after these messages, folks. Don't go anywhere. You can't stop the truth, ladies and gentlemen, from coming out. Truth can never be destroyed, no matter what the globalists want us to believe. And we will eventually uncover the truth about the series of events that took place on 9/11/2001 in New York City and Washington, D.C. and Pennsylvania. Chaos sorcery is what this is ultimately about. Creating, through fear, a synthesis. That which controllers want to put into place, and in doing so, getting people to give up their natural law inherent rights because they were in so much fear. And in that state, they'll always run to a protector promising to save them from the chaotic events that are happening. Oh, but there's a catch. You have to give up all your rights to receive that protection, don't you? And that's what we've seen after these events. So, in this segment, see, we can go on and on talking about the ins and outs of this. As I said, we could do 20 shows. And Darrell is an expert on all of the aspects of this. He's looked into it more than anybody else I know. But we'll bring Darrell back on in a future show to talk about 9/11 activism as part of solutions. How can we get this information out to the public? Because he's doing great work in that regard, as are many others in the Philadelphia area. So with that in mind, I think that's we've bombarded enough people with information. Let's go to your calls now and see what the listeners have to say. Here we go. Jane in Baltimore, you are live on What on Earth is Happening. What do you have for us?
Just to give a name and a face to the Harley guy, the guy wearing the black Harley shirt who your guest mentioned earlier.
Yes.
He has been identified as Mark Adrian Humphrey, spelled just as you would expect it, Mark Adrian Humphrey. He's the actor in the Harley shirt. Featured in an interview by Fox, broadcast by Fox. That's Rick Lowenthal interviewing him. He's a longtime anchor on Fox. And subsequent to that, there's another video where you see another professional actor, a professional Hollywood stuntman by the name of Roger Cross, right behind Humphrey. And so you've got the situation in New York City where apparently in order to complete this simulation, they employed a number of professional actors. I could say that the figure's tentatively been identified as Humphrey, except that apparently Mark Adrian Humphrey successfully claimed copyright infringement on this Fox News footage that is out there on YouTube for everybody to go and see, in which he denies playing any role. How's that possible?
Well,
how could he have any copyright if it wasn't him? Why would he know that? Now apparently he wants the clip to go away. He wants it to the
don't worry about
it.
It will be posted to this website and it will not be taken down. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Of course, what's interesting, and I think what Mark points out frequently, is that the messenger is just packaging the message. They trotted him out there within minutes of one of these towers erupting like volcanoes, and he uses words like collapse when, of course, we saw them explode. But see, the problem is, and of course, the initial explosions that are allegedly attributed to airplane crashes. Remember, those occurred. The first one, which would have been the North Tower, allegedly was hit at 8:45, and the second one, the South Tower, was hit at about 9:05. But the first one didn't go down, and the first one to go down was the second one to be allegedly hit.
Right.
And that went down like maybe about 45 minutes later. Those things sat and quietly smoked. No one expected them to go down. That was a ridiculous idea. But when they finally did, they sat there and they smoked quietly, and then they erupted like volcanoes into clouds of dust, at least from the videos we can see. Of course, I don't know how much credence to accord much of the video and photographic material that has been released by the mainstream media. I think that's going to take a lot of sifting, Mark. I think there's a lot of, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I think there's a lot of transparent TV fakery, some of it easily discernible, others maybe more difficult, and all kinds of media simulation. If you look at full spectrum dominance, and one of the key features of future combat systems and full spectrum dominance is the ability to create simulations that are so real that you convince the participants and any viewers that they're real as well. And the use of the media is central to this. And of course, this is at the core of the occult trickery. And I would say the method that that Mark at least is taking on this is that instead of getting caught up in these arguments about lie-hop versus like lie-hop would assume they were real planes and real hijackers, but they had foreknowledge and they let it happen.
Right.
My-hop made it happen on purpose, at least acknowledges they blew something up. But I would say Mark is making the case for what I would call my-top, which is to say made it transparent on purpose at various different levels. And isn't this really what part of the key to occult methodology, to be able to package within these visual representations, whether simulated or real, multiple messages at multiple different levels of the pyramid to anyone, as you say, to intelligence agencies and intelligence agencies and military organizations about the kind of technical capabilities that these guys have with respect to exotic weapons, or the respect to the ability to control media and brainwash a whole population. But I say many of us, more of us, were meant to see that they did it. It was made transparent on purpose, and to me, that's at the core of a cult.
Sure. When I met Mark, he showed me 3 basic tarot cards that are very symbolic of the 9/11 operation. One is the tower, and where you see like it being struck by lightning and people falling and jumping, and you even see the people on 9/11 falling out of the windows of the North and South Tower, just like the tarot card. And then you have the High Priestess was another card he showed with the 2 towers of Jachin and Boaz.
Right.
And the third one was the Death card, which has the Pentagon on the flag, and
and also the 2 towers in the background with the sun setting between them.
Yes. So I mean, yeah, it was, and there was even an Illuminati card game from 1995.